Denzel Washington walked into the studio that morning expecting the usual. A few polite questions about his new film, maybe a nostalgic nod to his iconic roles, and some lighthearted banter. Standard fare. He was relaxed, calm, ready. What he wasn't ready for was the storm waiting behind Tamron Hall's smile. The lights were bright, the cameras rolling, and the audience clapping as Tamron opened the segment with charm. "We're joined today by none other than the legendary Denzel Washington," she beamed. "Before we begin, tell us where are you watching from, also subscribe. Let's talk about your latest project." Denzel gave his practiced nod and warm smile. "Thanks for having me," he said, but just as the mood seemed to settle into something familiar, Tamron's tone shifted, just slightly, enough to notice. "You know," she said, leaning in a little too casually, "a lot of people admire your work. But there are whispers, Denzel. Some folks say working with you isn't always easy." Denzel raised an eyebrow. "Whispers?" he echoed, clearly caught off guard. Tamron continued, voice calm but sharp. "Some crew members claim you isolate yourself on set. Others say you come off, let's say, less than approachable." The air in the room changed. The live audience grew quiet. Even the production crew behind the cameras went still. Denzel leaned back, thoughtful, not rattled yet. "I take my work seriously," he said slowly. "That's not the same thing as being difficult." But Tamron wasn't backing off. "There are stories," she said. "People saying you have special demands. Private dressing rooms, no direct contact unless it's through an assistant." He interrupted her gently, but firmly. "You mean to tell me you brought me here to ask about gossip?" Tamron met his gaze evenly. "I brought you here to have a real conversation, not just sell a movie." The tension was thick now. Denzel sat forward, voice low but deliberate. "I've been doing this for decades. My work, my reputation, they speak for themselves. I treat people with respect, no matter who they are." Tamron smirked slightly, flipping through her notes. "Respect goes both ways, though. Some say you've lost touch with regular folks, living in Beverly Hills, traveling with a full entourage. It doesn't exactly scream man of the people, does it?" Denzel's demeanor shifted, subtle but clear. His shoulders squared, his smile faded. "Careful," he said, quiet but stern. "You don't know me. Don't pretend you do." She crossed her arms. "Do you even interact with normal people anymore? When's the last time you stood in line at the DMV or pumped your own gas?" Now it wasn't just tense, it was personal. The audience wasn't clapping anymore. They were watching something unravel. "I don't need to prove my humanity to you," Denzel said. "I'm not here to be cross-examined." Tamron tilted her head. "So you're denying it all? The isolation, the diva demands, the attitude?" "I'm saying you're not asking questions, you're making accusations," he replied, eyes steady, "and I won't play that game." A long silence followed. Finally, Tamron forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just doing my job," she said. Denzel slowly stood up, calm, controlled, but done. "Your job should be to have a conversation, not start a fight," he said. He unclipped his mic, handed it to a stunned assistant, and walked off the set, leaving behind a silence louder than any applause. The studio's buzz had evaporated. What had begun as a routine interview now felt like a battlefield. Denzel stood, his expression controlled, but charged with suppressed energy. The microphone lay between them, a silent testament to a conversation gone awry. Tamron's eyes darted, trying to reclaim the moment. "You can't just walk away from this," she said with forced composure. "We're live. You've got an obligation to your contract, to our viewers." He cut her off, voice firm. "My obligation was to come here and talk about my work, not to have my personhood dissected on air based on rumors." She jabbed back. "Don't act like I'm the one who started it. You agreed to this interview. Don't back out now when you're uncomfortable." He moved closer, presence deliberate. "We both agreed to talk, but not to trade in lies or assumptions. That's where I draw the line." Tamron's cheeks flamed. She forced a nervous laugh. "You're being dramatic. You're twisting this around." "Am I?" Denzel's calm turned sharp. "You attacked me from your desk. You came in on the offensive, not to understand, but to undermine. If you think that's fair, you're mistaken." The audience sat motionless. Cameras hovered, catching every flicker, every subtle shift in body language. She raised her voice. "You act like nothing's ever been questioned about you. Everyone deserves accountability, even stars." He sighed, frustration showing now. Accountability for what? Working hard? Being successful? What exact misdeed do you think demands exposing me on your show? She swallowed, faltered, then said, for presenting yourself as flawless, for hiding the real you, for telling people you're someone you're not. His momentary pause spoke volumes. He looked away, down at the mic. Then, I've made mistakes. I'm human. But a person's life is more than scandal or rumors. You're reducing me to whispers you can't prove. Tamron leaned forward, voice cracking slightly. So you'll deflect everything, act wounded rather than accountable? He shook his head. I refuse to treat my dignity like a debate point. If you have facts, present them. If not, stop masquerading assumptions as questions. Her expression flickered. She attempted a softer tone. Fine, let's talk about your new film. But don't spin this like you're the victim. He ignored her trap. He looked at the audience. I came here to discuss creativity, performance, the story behind the role, not to be ambushed. If we have to reset, then reset. But I won't continue under threats masked as inquiry. Her posture stiffened. You're bullying me with your calm, she said, pretending serenity while pushing me away. He took a step back. No, that's not control, that's boundary. You're free to ask anything, but not to abuse the privilege of a live platform. She cast a glance toward the crew, meant to signal strength, but they avoided it. Their faces were uneasy. The audience leaned in, breath held. She whispered, you want me to ask about your film? Go ahead. Ask me your questions. Try to deflect. See where that leads you. He exhaled. Let's be honest then. Ask me what matters, not who gossips about me. Ask me about the passion behind this project. Ask me what drove me to this role. Ask me about the messages I hope to impart. Her lips parted. She opened her mouth and closed it again. The clip of hesitation was electric. The studio lights hummed softly. The silence stretched. Then Tamron nodded stiffly. Okay, she said, scanning her notes. Tell us about the transition from script to set. What was most challenging about your character in this film? Denzel straightened. The shift was abrupt, but intentional. He sat again, lowering himself slowly into the chair Tamron vacated. He breathed deep, then began. When I first received the script, I saw more than lines and stage directions. I saw a person, flawed, conflicted, driven by something bigger than themselves. My job wasn't just to act. It was to embody that internal struggle. She raised an eyebrow. What internal struggle? He leaned in. Loss, regret, hope, balancing integrity with ambition. What do you do when you believe in something and the world resists you? How do you stay true without losing your humanity? She nodded as though surprised by the depth. The microphone was back in play. The cameras refocused. The atmosphere shifted again, not smooth, but purposeful. He continued, there are sequences in the film where my character confronts systemic barriers, personal betrayals, and self-doubt. To make those real, I spent weeks meeting with people who've lived similar narratives, listening, observing. I immersed myself in the textures of their experiences so I could answer these questions honestly, not just as an actor, but as someone asking what it means to be human in imperfect circumstances. Tamron let silence hang, letting viewers absorb the shift. She reached for a question on her pad. Did those weeks change how you see your own journey? Denzel nodded. Absolutely. Art does that. It reframes your past. It clarifies what you've taken for granted. It reveals wounds you forgot were there. This role challenged me to reconcile what I've built publicly with who I still am privately. Now the crowd felt the pivot from confrontation to contemplation. The tension had not disappeared, but transformed. Tamron's voice was softer. And the reaction to this role? What are you hoping people take away? He met her eyes. That empathy is not weakness. That honesty doesn't always mean perfection. That our mistakes don't define us. They refine us. If someone watches and feels seen, if one conversation is sparked, then all the friction tonight was worth it. The cameras panned across faces in the audience, some skeptical, some moved. The host and guest, locked in a fragile truce, sat in silence for a beat too long. After the taping ended, the buzz in the studio refused to settle. Camera crews exchanged uneasy glances, and producers whispered urgently into headsets. Tamron stood motionless at her desk, her fingers still clutching her cue cards like a life raft. Denzel had already stepped off the set. He moved deliberately, head held high but jaw clenched. A quiet storm followed in his wake as staff parted to let him pass. In the hallway, his publicist Marie caught up with him, tablet in hand and panic in her voice. What the hell was that? She hissed. That wasn't damage control, that was a second detonation. She ambushed me, Denzel said, barely looking at her. That wasn't an interview, that was a trial. You knew they'd bring up the allegations, she shot back. You're a seasoned vet, you could have handled it more subtly. He stopped walking. I've spent 20 years being subtle. Where did that get me? Marie blinked, taken off guard. She wanted drama, he continued. I gave her truth. It might not look clean on a playback reel, but I didn't come here to be another headline. Marie exhaled, brushing her bangs back. You're trending already. Clips are being chopped and flipped. Half the comments say you were powerful. The other half say you snapped. He smirked. Let them say it. I'd rather be real than rehearsed. Just then, a production assistant jogged down the corridor toward them. Mr. Washington, she said nervously. Tamron wants a word, off the record, in her dressing room. He paused. She sent you to tell me that? She said it wouldn't be right to end the day like that, said it's just a conversation, no cameras. Marie gave him a warning glance. This could be a setup. Or a reckoning, he said. Either way, I'm not hiding. Without waiting, he walked down the corridor, turned the corner, and knocked once on Tamron's door. Come in, he stepped inside. Her dressing room was dimly lit, quiet, far removed from the heat of the studio floor. Tamron sat alone on a low couch, her heels off, legs crossed, a tumbler of water in her hands. Her shoulders were slouched, not defeated, but no longer performing. She motioned to a chair. You mind? He sat cautiously. She let out a long breath. I didn't expect today to go like that. I'm sure you didn't, he replied. You thought I'd roll over. Play nice. She smiled faintly. I thought you'd stay in PR mode. You didn't. Silence settled, then she asked, did I cross a line? Denzel studied her. What do you think? I think maybe I was trying to be brave. Maybe I mistook confrontation for courage. He looked at her, surprised by the candor. Or maybe you've just been in the game so long you stopped noticing when you're holding a dagger. Tamron didn't flinch. Fair. More silence. I wasn't trying to humiliate you, she said. I wanted to ask the questions I thought the public deserved to hear. And who decides what they deserve? He asked. You, social media, gossip writers? No, she said. But when someone as powerful as you walks into a room, people expect transparency, even if it's uncomfortable. I'm not a candidate, he said. I'm an artist. I owe people honesty in my work, not my wounds. Tamron's brow furrowed. So the rumors mean nothing? They don't deserve comment? He leaned forward. What rumor? Name one with proof. Name one that isn't recycled tabloid bait. She hesitated. That's the problem, he said. You're asking questions you wouldn't ask a man with less fame or more protection. Her voice dropped. Maybe I've just spent so long fighting to be heard that I forgot when to listen. Denzel exhaled. The tension between them softened. Not entirely, but enough. Tamron stood, walked over to the vanity, and picked up a small photo, a black and white portrait of her younger self, bright-eyed, full of fire. I used to think journalism was about truth, she said. Now I wonder if it's just become a performance. He nodded. That's how I feel about acting some days. They both laughed, briefly, awkwardly, but it was real. You know, she said, setting the photo down. You didn't have to come in here. I did, he replied, because walking away angry isn't peace, it's delay. She looked at him genuinely now. So what happens next? You air the show, uncut, he said. Let people decide what they saw. Let them see the cracks. Not everyone will like it, but they'll feel it. And you? He stood. I'll keep doing what I do. Whether they cheer or boo, I'm not changing course. As he turned to go, she called out, Denzel. He paused. You were right about one thing, she said. You're not perfect, but you're not hiding either. That matters. He gave a small nod, then left without a word. The next morning, the internet was a wildfire. Clips from the interview went viral overnight, some praising Denzel for his composure and candor, others accusing Tamron of trying to corner him. Pieces sprang up from every corner of the digital world. Culture critics, media watchdogs, and Twitter philosophers all had an opinion. Headlines read, Denzel Unchained, why Washington's interview may have changed everything. Tamron Hall and the line between journalism and performance. Two titans, one truth, who really won? In the quiet of his Manhattan apartment, Denzel stood at the window with a black coffee in hand, watching the sun rise between steel towers. His phone buzzed non-stop on the kitchen counter, but he ignored it. The work would call eventually, as it always did. He didn't need validation. He hadn't gone to that studio to win. He had gone to be heard. Without script, without polish, without apology. Behind him, the TV was on mute, replaying the segment. Watching it with sound off, he noticed something strange. It wasn't the words that hit hardest, it was the silences, the unspoken tension, the mutual restraint, the sparks when ego and truth collided, not to destroy, but to ignite something deeper. He switched the TV off. A knock at the door. He opened it to find his longtime friend and director, Malcolm, standing with a paper bag of bagels and 2 coffees. "Thought you might need a little calm after the storm," he said. Denzel grinned. "Only if there's cream cheese." They sat at the counter, quiet for a moment. "You knew what you were walking into?" Malcolm asked finally. "I thought I did," Denzel said. "Turns out I didn't know how much I was holding back until someone lit the match." Malcolm nodded. "You didn't hold back in there, but you didn't go low either. That's rare." "I'm tired of playing polite when the stakes are truth," Denzel said. "Let people twist it how they want. I know what I said." Malcolm smiled. "And you said it without playing the victim. That's what makes it land." A pause. "Think you'll ever sit down for that kind of interview again?" Malcolm asked. Denzel sipped his coffee. "Maybe, but next time, I picked the room." Across town, Tamron sat alone in her office, reading through the flood of responses. She'd seen backlash before, misquotes, bad faith clips, the mob-like rise and fall of the algorithm, but this felt different, more divided. Some viewers called her brave, others called her reckless. Some accused her of fueling gossip. Others said she asked the questions no one else would. She played the interview back again. This time she watched herself, her body language, her tone, her eyes when Denzel spoke. What struck her wasn't that she had been aggressive, it was that she had been ready for war. But was he? She leaned back in her chair, letting that question settle. Then she pulled out her notebook and wrote down a single sentence: "Be brave, but not hungry." A reminder, there would be more interviews, more guests, more moments when fire and dignity needed to share the same chair. But this one had left a mark. She picked up her phone and typed out a message. "Mr. Washington, I've watched the interview back. Thank you for your honesty. You challenged me in a way I won't forget. Maybe next time, no cameras, just a table and some tea." She hit send. A few minutes later, the reply came. "Deal, but you're bringing the tea. I've had enough hot seats for a while." Weeks passed. The media cycle moved on. Elections, scandals, box office battles. The headlines that once screamed about Denzel and Tamron faded into archives. But something had changed. Producers began rethinking their approach to hard-hitting interviews. Viewers started asking more questions about tone, motive, and the cost of public exposure. A few even praised the interview not for what it said, but for what it showed. 2 people in power, colliding, not destroying one another, but revealing that truth isn't a performance. It's a process. As for Denzel, he returned to the set of his next film, older, quieter, but more grounded than ever. And Tamron, in her next interview, asked better questions. Not softer, but deeper. Because behind every story was a real person. And sometimes, the boldest thing you can do isn't challenge someone on camera. It's listen to them off it. If you like this video, then subscribe.